Remember Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric? This Wii U game was critically panned due to it being lacking in content, filled with glitches, and having really nothing to improve or differentiate on the platforming genre. It was supposed to be a whole new look on Sonic games, and to slow things down and put focus on the characters and story, and bring in a whole new world for Sonic to explore, but mysteriously, they never did anything interesting or different with the new world or bring in any new or interesting characters. Anyone new would just show up for a good 2 to 4 minutes and do nothing else to the plot. So yeah, everyone was bummed out on the game, and it caused the Sonic franchise's reputation to go even more downhill than previously. But how? This game was not developed by Sonic Team. It was actually developed by Big Red Button Entertainment, a developing company established of former Naughty Dog employees. For those unaware, Naughty Dog is a studio known for making games like the Crash Bandicoot series, Jak and Daxter, The Last of Us, and the Uncharted series. Many of these games get lots of praise, so why would these developers end up making a game so disappointing to many? Looking back at the trailers for Sonic Boom, it really felt like they had something going. The stages, the characters, the vehicles, etc. But what we see in the trailer is pretty much all we get. Now there's the argument that Sonic Boom isn't a good Sonic game due to the fact that the game doesn't revolve around speed, which separates Sonic from the other popular gaming mascots like Mario or Mega Man. So there's no way the game could have been good, right? I disagree. Upon further research or development for the game, there is actually a whole lot of reasons this game turned out the way it was. So I've decided I'm going to tell you everything. So let's begin. This is an analysis on why Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric became the way it was. So, where to begin? Let's start with the beginning of development. Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric began development in 2011 under the name Sonic Synergy. Synergy being a fitting name since the game somewhat revolves around teamwork between the 4 characters. By the way, wow, just look at how awesome this logo design is. Anyways, as mentioned previously, the game was intended to be different from various other Sonic games released. How did they start? By making these weird character designs. They were trying to achieve a Sonic that looks very different from the real Sonic. And by the looks of it, they really had no idea what they were doing. Just imagine how laughably cringy and bad it would be if they went with this thing. It's very assumable that they did this with the other characters, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, but unfortunately, we are unable to be able to find any concept art of them. I mean, we got their final designs, but we can't really find any concept art of what they possibly could have originally looked like. I dread what they could have looked like. I mean, again, this Sonic here, and don't even get me started on what they had for Eggman. Look, can you guess who this character is? It's Eggman. Looks like him, right? Yep, that looks exactly like how I would imagine Eggman would look like in Sonic Boom. So, they eventually got the designs they felt worked. Now they just needed a world for them to be in. But they wanted an interesting one. So they went with an undiscovered ancient world with a lot of backstory and meaning behind it. A world that we would discover more and more about so we can put the pieces together. A world surrounded by many interesting characters to learn about. And why not wrap this beautiful world with some beautiful graphics? And beautiful graphics indeed. Look at this, we got some very colorful valleys, tons of area depth, lots of environmental effects everywhere. We got wind, detail, sun rays, great shading, reflections, and you know, everything that makes graphics look beautiful. And they were in love with this. They thanked the CryEngine for it. CryEngine 3 was the engine they were using. CryEngine 3 is a pretty popular engine used for making games like the Crysis series. And Crysis is known for incredible graphics. So they were like, now we got it. A Sonic game about characters exploring a world filled with tons of new characters to learn about, and beautiful graphics. Wow. So they put a lot of work into graphics. They made tons of different areas that look beautiful. So what did they have to do next? Well, they needed some characters in there, and they did that by making some pretty good cartoony models. Uncanny cartoony models. Very, very uncanny cartoony models. But on the bright side, well, they had lots of emotion. The developers wanted to make sure that when you see a character emote, you really see them emote. I mean, look at the concept art here. Also, I just wanted to mention, they had Sonic have fingerless gloves. We can actually see his fingers. Yeah, just wanted to mention that. And then they made ourselves a story with a new villain, a cool snake, Lyric the Last Ancient, locked in a tomb for over 1,000 years, only to be free with the help of Sonic and his friends after threatened by a familiar foe, which is Eggman. They realize the mess they made, since his robot-building technologies have the ability to destroy the entire world, so they go out to fight him and smash him into next week, while they explore and discover their new paradise. Go Team Sonic, the four of you are definitely strong enough. Speaking of strong, so we got this being a slow platformer, right? We got this being a really good platformer, really good world to explore, blah 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 blah. So what do we need now? I know. We need combat. We need Sonic and friends to pull off some really strong moves. So they developed some attack systems for them. We got lots of attacks. First attacks, secondary attacks, different abilities. You can even use them in mid-air and charge them and unlock more. So yeah, there was lots going on with combat. How about we introduce something that's a new concept? That's right, they had a new concept in mind called the Enter Beam. This Enter Beam thing is based on the ring chain from Knuckles Chaotix, which keeps the two characters linked together. This thing was going to be used to, pick up enemies and throw them at walls, but that's not enough. We don't need a lasso here. We need to be able to grab characters, pull things down, chain each other together, slingshot each other, and climb up walls. We can do lots with this lasso thing here. Oh, and we're not done yet. How about we use it to jet ski across the water? And we can't have a good game without Chao, right? I mean, they must have loved the Chao and Sonic games, so how about we bring him back with some pretty cool designs, I guess? Featuring lots of collectibles like crystals, chili dogs, robot scrap, and more. Ah, screw it, we can't have Sonic without speed. Let's give him obstacle courses. Roads, basically, that you can run on and collect and dodge stuff. So yeah, vehicles, enemies, weapons, extras, character-exclusive obstacles, a soccer minigame, and some really neat hub worlds and levels. Don't get the memo? This sounds like, surprise surprise, a good game! A good game that these developers could pull off! Now don't get me wrong, Sonic Synergy could have been a bad game still, but with all this content seen in early footage, how could have this been bad? Synergy was in development for around 3 years. This is being developed by a lot of good developers who worked on Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, you name it. There's so much seen in these unreleased trailers, this probably isn't even the start of what they had. This could have had the potential to become one of the best co-op platformers out there. Amazing characters and story, beautiful graphics, tons of fun platforming, mini-games, hub worlds, side quests, vehicles, and the Enter Beam and combat explored to nearly its full potential. Did I mention Chao? Yes, I did. I suppose I'm getting a little too excited here. I mean, sure, the game was originally better and had lots of work and all. You know what? One question remains. Why? Why does this game look so much better here than in the final product? The developers say they were supposed to be making the game for unspecified next-gen hardware, so they really didn't know what console it was going to end up on. But, they heard the word next-gen, so they're like, let's crank up those graphics, yo. But SEGA, at the time, was going through an exclusivity deal with Nintendo to release 3 games for their consoles before they make their next game, which is supposed to be on Sony and Microsoft consoles. Those 3 games were Sonic Lost World, and Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Games, and wait, what's the third one? Well, turns out Synergy was the only game in development, so they had to go up and say, we can't release our own half-baked game, you're gonna have to make this on Wii U, so yeah. And they were totally cool with that until they started porting the game and they saw what was wrong. The graphics were incompatible with the console. Okay, that's fine. We can just decrease them, right? Not enough. As it turns out, a lot of content couldn't work on the system because the Cry engine wasn't supported for Wii U. Because Nintendo obviously doesn't care about big name games, right? Until now. And they had to release this game for the holidays of 2014. That's right, holidays. And by the time this happened, it was around, assumably, mid-2013. So they didn't have much time to iron out the bugs and all. They had to get assistance from Nintendo to help fix the engine and make it work. But that's not just it. This game had to become a cartoon tie-in. That's right, a kids' comedy cartoon tie-in. So the story had to be kind of decreased in backstory and effort, unfortunately, to make sure it follows up to the cartoon. And we gotta have some jokes in there for the kids, right? Well, there's more of a problem to that. They had to get rid of all these characters that they had in mind and just replace them with ones that would appear in the show. Apparently, Big Red Button Entertainment didn't have enough contact with the cartoon makers to make the universe of the show be in the game. So they just had to assume a lot of things and rework hub worlds into what the village in the show would end up being. It's obviously possible to assume they were late into the cartoon tie-in deal and they had to put it all together closest to the cartoon as possible. And unfortunately, with this in mind, with all these problems that the game had during its development, put a lot of stress onto the developers at Big Red Button Entertainment. They had to put a lot of work into decreasing the graphics. Well, they made the characters look better, I guess, but they had to decrease the graphics mainly. I mean, well, that's what we all assume. I mean, right. This game is just decreased graphics. Everything else is in the game, right? No. I mean, look at this design for Styx. She was probably a leader for a tribe, and you know what? Well, she just appears in the game for like a few seconds and all, and tells you how to use this move, and then disappears into nothingness. Yep, and she's supposed to be one of the main characters of the cartoon. And this is how they meet Styx? This is how they meet the character? One of the main characters? Yeah. And not only that, but the combat also had to be decreased. What did they have to do with the combat? Well, they had to make sure that each character only has 2 combos. That's right, 2 combos, and it can't be changed. You can't attack enemies in mid-air, and you can't block, and, well, yeah, the combat was heavily decreased. There's really nothing you can do. There's no upgrades or anything that you can do. Because the developers possibly didn't have enough time to put it into the game in the current state that it was in. They had to work on decreasing the graphics, and they even released a trailer claiming that it was running on PC hardware, and indeed it was. The graphics still look better, but a lot of the content in this trailer is actually seen in the final game. But for the original Sonic Synergy trailer, there's also a lot of content that looks very different from the final. So it's assuming by the time of this release trailer, which was 2014, that they were still ironing out all the bugs and making sure that the graphics would work on the system. And they had to cut out Chow because, well, they weren't in the show. Well, you get the point. Lots of items were removed. The Enter Beam had to be changed to just being a thing that you can use to swing off vines, pick up enemies, and, well, there you have it. That's all you can do. Just pick up enemies and swing off vines. When originally we could climb up walls, change her together, and slingshot people, and, you know, kick down the bridge in Crater Lake, which instead in the final game you just pull down. A lot of weapons had to be removed. A lot of extras had to be removed. Whole levels had to be removed too. A big chunk of the levels seen in this trailer, in fact almost all of them, aren't in the final game. And if they are, they have their designs changed, likely due to the fact that a lot of the characters' moves, stuff had to be changed in order to fit what they had. So there you have it. That's basically why Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric ended up being the way it was. A deep and interesting take on the Sonic franchise and series was dumbed down to be some awful cartoon tie-in video game with tons of plot mistakes, glitches, the bad things that are usually in games. And when it comes to the story, the fact that it was meant to be deep and interesting and put emphasis on the ancient world, they didn't even know what the ancient world was going to be about in the cartoon, so a lot of that had to be removed. I mean, it's possible that the main plot wasn't going to be too big. They just release Lyric from his tomb and he goes out, and then they have to go through some worlds to stop him. But that's it in the final game. But in the beta, when they actually had all these cool characters that they originally planned up, it's possible that these characters meant to be an increase for the plot, to be something that makes the plot interesting, which could explain why the story ends up being so bare bones in the final. It's highly doubtful that Big Red Button will ever get the rights to, you know, make a Sonic Boom sequel, but I hope that at some point they manage to make a platformer that was meant to be Sonic Synergy. Don't take this as an offense to you. If you like the game, that's fine. I mean, I played the heck out of this game. In the end, I thought the game was mediocre. It's baffling about what they originally had and how it had to be changed. Well, anyways, that's all the time I have. Hope you enjoyed the video.